In the remote Arizona desert, a passenger train barreled through the night carrying over 250 people. The crew had no idea of the danger ahead. Someone had removed 29 railway spikes and shifted the tracks. What followed was a devastating derailment. At the crash site, the discovery of a cryptic manifesto sparked a federal investigation with ties to the Oklahoma City bombing. So, who did this and why? Today, we investigate the Sunset Limited Sabotage. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and a sprinkling of the unknown. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Absolutely terrifying, because this has crossed my mind at some point in my life of like, what if someone just did this and someone did? Like, there's probably hundreds of miles of train tracks,
probably thousands, right?
Yeah, and none of it's being monitored, and so someone could just, I'm assuming I don't know, maybe the equipment's hard to get a hold of or something, but it's possible, right? Someone really wanted to. And someone did. And so absolutely terrifying that someone could just do that. And then that's it. Done.
Right. I mean, let's break it down piece by piece. Thousands of miles, I'm sure, is somewhere accurate for North America, though I wish we had more. I'm putting out the word. I would love me a high-speed rail. After going to Japan and even seeing the trains in Europe, I'm like, we're in the Stone Ages back here. Plane travel is great. I love me a high-speed rail. Second of all, there are a few ways to monitor some of these remote areas, because you're not wrong. There are remote tracks just way off, like this one in the middle of the desert, where people aren't really seeing it unless the train's going by. You might have people kind of observing it, but there are sensors and track circuits that we're going to talk about that usually keep an eye for certain things of this nature, whether it be another train on the track or if a rail was moved. We'll talk about that because it was manipulated here.
Oh, man. Because then at that point, there might be some coding manipulation or a bit of an inside job, something like that. I didn't know that. I didn't know train tracks had like sensors like that.
Same. I'll be honest. I keep my eyes to the sky and I'm a plane guy. But trains are, I mean, they're growing on me, man. They're old school, but they're growing on me. So I learned a lot when we were doing this research for this episode. But yeah, there's a lot to break down with this one, including, like I said, it really starts to get hairy with how much this ties into other events of that time. Like, this is 6 months after the Oklahoma City bombing. And so we're not going to get way into the weeds of what that is and what the other events that are referenced in this manifesto, this letter. But like, we'll get lightly into them because they are huge topics of their own, and maybe someday we'll talk about each of them. But it's wild because we're going to see, it's the year is 1995. You and I are just little drooling children running around in the yards. But this came at such a moment in the zeitgeist where, again, especially because the Oklahoma City bombing, that it really had the FBI on edge. It had the public on edge. And that is really the lens I want to analyze this topic through, because it really guides how we all responded to it. And that really also shifts just how much of an effort went into trying to figure this out. But it is still a cold case.
I mean, like, if someone just like did that in the random part of the track, middle of the night, and then just left and then never did it again.
Dude, what do you do about that?
He's in the middle of the woods just doing that, and then just disappears right. And doesn't do it again.
Right. That's the scariest thing is the person with no reason. They have they don't have a pattern. They just do one chaotic, dangerous, deadly thing one time, and then they're in the wind. To come back to your initial thought on that is, I think, one of the more truly terrifying elements of some of the cases we've covered, is that anyone, for any reason, at any time, for whatever reason, can just do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And then again, we see sometimes a lot of people get caught is because they've done it 10, 20, 30 times.
Right. The hubris.
And we've talked about it before. It's like, what if they just stopped at 9? They got caught at 10. What if they stopped at 9? What if they stopped at 5? You know? And these are sometimes murder cases. And so it's like, okay, this person killed 25 people. What if they just stopped at like 10? Just 10, and then just went about living their life. I mean, granted, there's a lot of hard coding, I would assume, going on in that brain. And it's not something that's easy to do. But yeah, maybe this person was just, you know, Christopher Nolan's Joker, and he just wanted to watch the world burn. And he had no other motive. He was like, I just want to do this, which is absolutely terrifying.
It's truly terrifying. We're going to talk about that, the idea of local militias. We're going to talk about the idea of inside jobs. There's a lot to unpack with it. And on the way there, I think, you know, we should unfold the incident and get really into all of that. But before we do, we're at the tail end of July. It's been a hell of a month for us. A lot going on. Real quick, last Friday, we did our monthly gameplay. If you like our gameplays, come hang out with us. That's at redwebpod.com. Earlier this month, Christian, Fredo, and Shane all went to a ghost hunt, which on one hand, I have a lot of FOMO about, but on the other hand, it sounds like I dodged. I'm seeing a lot of the comments. I dodged a lot of eerie people that you guys really got something. I cannot wait. Yeah.
It's kind of hoping that they wouldn't believe anything that's going on, because then I go, all right, cool. Like, it's just, you know, weird stuff that is explained. For everyone's sitting here going, I think they got something. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
We're all skeptics at heart. We're skeptics with different reactions. Like, you're the skeptic that's like, why mess with it? I'm the skeptic that wants for it to be real. Yeah. Christian is the skeptic that's like, I'll be way back here though, but it's interesting. And Shane's like, nah, dude, it's real. And I've seen it, you know, so he's not the skeptic, but yeah, so I'm very excited to share the debrief, because that will be my first reaction. That's coming soon. But if you want any of the extra hours of ghost hunting footage, the static cameras, which themselves had some technical glitches, evidence or not, head over to redwebpod.com. Again, every time we go ghost hunting, we got hours of extra goodies just for you for supporting us. Now, last order of business. Again, it is the last week of July. And this is probably, I don't know, I've loved every single piece of merch we've had, Fredo. But the 6-year anniversary merch hit something special. It was this perfect trifecta of all of us coming together and kind of putting together a collage of ideas and going to our designers. And we have a Mothman graphic tee, a yokai graphic tee featuring what I'm calling now the new mascot of the buff scientist, the Nurari Hyun, who has a gourd-like head. I'm showing it on my camera now. Who has a gourd-like head. He sneaks into people's homes and sips on their tea as if he owns the place. Kind of sippy cup of knowledge energy.
It really does fit the Red Web ecosystem, because the task force gravitates towards really weird cryptids.
Oh yeah. I mean, shout out to our squonks. You know what I mean?
Dude coming in drinking your tea. It's just like, task force is like, I like that guy. And it's like, of course. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. This is our guy. We got Squonk. We got a new Rarihyon, the big gourd head. I think that means, in English, translated literally, means slippery gourd. So, and he is the supreme commander of all yokai, of all the monsters. Anyway, I bring this up because, we also have our minimalist like Roku merch, and I don't mean the TV, whatever. I mean Roku as in the kanji character 6 in Japanese. Future Trevor here to give you all some quick updates. We just had our huge 6-year anniversary stream this month. On the stream, we crossed off our entire level 1 stretch goals, which has been phenomenal. So we got a vinyl coming, we have Friends Sloptember coming, we got Red Web Theater, which is a new pilot where we watch some old public domain movies and react along with you guys. And then of course, the Halloween special, a ghost hunt is coming on the way, but level 2 is now active. And through the end of this month, you can still buy our merch and contribute to these stretch goals or donate. You can go to store.redwebpod.com or donate.redwebpod.com. And just some of those level 2 stretch goals include a couple of vlogs, Red Web Goes Smutty Part 2, because you guys really enjoyed that video last year. We would love to do a full movie-style gameplay where we take a game of your choice and play from start to finish in one mega upload. Of course, fan favorite Red Web Radio Part 3 is on the docket. And then, if we can hit it, the pie in the sky, we would love to do an additional gameplay every single month. You guys have been enjoying those. We really like those, and we'd love to see that get unlocked. But with that said, thank you guys so much for yet another tremendous July. 6 years, is absolutely wild, and we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Even if you're just listening, that is incredible. You guys have been so wonderful. Okay, with that said, back to the episode. Business is adjourned. Everyone put your case files away. The manila folder's folded. It's time to dive into the case. If you want some sensitive topics, those will be in the description. But the year is 1995. It's October 9th, somewhere after midnight. The Sunset Limited Sabotage refers to the derailment of Amtrak Sunset Limited that happened on this day. Now, there are two locomotives on this train. You have Amtrak locomotive number 511, and it was in the lead, and number 398, which is attached behind it. Very simply, it sounds kind of unusual, but you would have two locomotives just so the train can go forwards and backwards, and it also gives the train a little extra muscle to move all that weight. Now, the train was bound for Los Angeles, California, and had departed from New Orleans, Louisiana, roughly 1,900 miles east, or about 3,000 kilometers. Now, the original departure was in fact from Miami, Florida, kind of going all along the southern border there of the United States, but the train had most recently stopped in New Orleans. What's interesting is this train actually, with this very same name, still runs to this day. Now, the rest of this journey, like I said, it's heading through the southwest of the United States, kind of roughly near the US-Mexico border. Lots of remote, as you know, Fredo, between here in Texas and California, long stretches of desert, very remote, very, very desert. Now, in total, the train was carrying 248 passengers and 20 crew members. Around 1 a.m., the train had reached a sparse stretch of desert near Palo Verde, Arizona. This would have been about 50 miles or 80 kilometers west of Phoenix. Now, depending on the source, if you want to get down to the minute, some list this time at 1:20 a.m. I've also seen 1:35 a.m. and roughly anywhere in between. But suffice to say, it's getting late in the night. The train rounds a curve as it approaches a bridge that goes over the Quail Springs Wash. This is essentially a riverbed that is usually just dried up. Sometimes seasonal rain or what have you, it fills with water. But once the train got to the bridge, suddenly, without any warning, it derailed. The passenger cars hung 30 feet off the track, with 8 of the 12 total cars completely derailed. I'll let you take a look at the first 2 images I have for you. The source is the FBI and NPR, but you'll see of the 8 cars, 4 of them are hanging off the bridge and into that riverbed about 10 to 15 feet below.
Yeah. It's extra diabolical that they chose this specific spot.
Yeah.
Because it has that elevation difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the rise in that. It's a small bridge, but...
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's super tall. What, maybe like 20 feet or something? And it's just into dirt. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Not into like a water, not a huge cascading fall or anything like that. It's just very small. You just drive a truck under it, if that.
Sure.
But it's just dirt all under it. You know, they chose this spot probably because there's at least a little bit of elevation as opposed to just flat land.
Totally.
Yeah, this just looks like a terrible scene.
It really is dramatic to see a train on its side and bent and angled and down in the riverbed there. I think your observations are really fascinating because you're totally right. It's not a dramatic bridge, but it's also obviously like they focused on this bridge. And it makes me think whoever did this, intentionally wanted it to be the most dramatic it could be, but also is maybe local because this is a remote Arizona desert. It's not too far from Phoenix, but it's kind of out there. Like, why not a bigger bridge? You know, like these are all questions that start to bubble up.
Yeah. Because why like this spot, right? If you're going, I don't know the track, right? But I mean, I'm assuming there could be another place that could create even more damage. Could be because it's local.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it could have been someone that's like, I want to cause chaos on a Thursday night, right? And then this was just close to where they were at. They didn't want to put that much effort into it, as crazy as that sounds.
I want the train to crash, but I don't want to drive an extra hour or 2 to get to the big drop.
Yeah.
Or maybe they want it to crash but not be too lethal. Like they want it to be a dramatic derailment, but they're not looking for it to, Looney Tunes go off a cliff or something like that.
Yeah, I'm very interested.
It's all still a crime, but
it's all still bad. But like, what's the motive on this one? Right.
It's kind of, it's like, why would you did this on purpose, but did you get lazy to not go a little further out. It kind of raises, you're raising some really interesting kind of points of view here that kind of like make you really think about who this person is or what they're thinking. Not their right mind, obviously, to do something like this, but
right.
All in all, you see the derailment and then you see kind of from the sky there, 78 people were injured in this derailment. 12 of those injuries were labeled as pretty serious. And unfortunately, the incident did result in at least one death. The death of Mitchell Bates, who was an attendant sleeping in a car who died during, obviously, this accident. So, emergency services were immediately deployed but struggled to reach the crash site due to its remote location. Local farmers aided in rescue services by clearing off the back roads, trying to make it easier for anybody to get to this location. I mean, obviously, there's a railway going through here, but that doesn't mean that there's just roads that go right up to this spot. So I do appreciate, even though it's past midnight, that locals are rising to the occasion, trying to clear off any brush or only, some of these back roads just to get people out there. But it would be a full 45 minutes before the first responders were finally able to arrive at the scene, which all things considered is actually still quite good. Those who could emerge safely began to rescue other people who were still trapped in these overturned cars. And this is when, first responders get to the location. And nearby, pinned down under a rock, is a typewritten note. Yeah.
All right, I was not expecting a message here. Interesting. Typewritten notes. Just somewhere visible along this track here?
It must have just been out in the open because it caught the eye of one of the passengers. Basically, as they were all helping each other, you have a man named Neil Halford who just sees this letter held down by some rocks, and it stands out to him, and he goes and checks it out. And I'm going to read you what this letter says because I think... Not that I want to voice or platform someone's manifesto, but I think it will give us some idea as to the thinking going on, and it will really narrow the scope of the investigation into certain directions. That being said, I also want you to put on your cynic hat and think about this as maybe, is this a misdirect? These are all things we'll talk about. But here it goes. Quote, indictment of the ATF and FBI. Before dawn, the women awoke to say their morning prayers. The women slept upstairs. They lit their kerosene lamps because the electricity had been turned off by the FBI. After observing lights in all the upstairs windows, the FBI ordered the tear gas bombardment. Afterwards, only 2 upstairs windows were lit. The location of each was recorded. Over the next few hours, ventilation holes were poked in the walls. These holes made the fire burn very much faster. Otherwise, the fire department would have had time to put out the fire before the women and children died in the flames. At noon, the light from the 2 kerosene lamps was obscured by a bright sunlight. Everyone had forgotten about them except the man who carried their locations written on a scrap of paper in his pocket. He ordered the tank drivers where to crash through. Guess under which 2 windows. He ordered them to raise their guns. As they backed out, the guns were lowered. The videotape shows clearly the floor being raised by, word unintelligible, 1.5 feet. Guess what happened to the kerosene lamps in, word unintelligible, rooms above the tanks. A minute afterwards, black smoke started to pour out of the windows where the lamps had burned. This is the normal time needed for a kerosene fire to build up. Who is policing the ATF, FBI, state troopers, county sheriffs, and local police? What federal law enforcement agency investigates each and every chokehold killing committed by a police officer? Each and every beating of a drunk, whether or not a passerby videotapes it? Each and every shooting of a police officer's wife who knows too much about drug kickbacks? Each and every killing at Ruby Ridge? The Gestapo accounts to no one. This is not Nazi Germany. All these people had rights. It is time for an independent federal agency to police the law enforcement agencies and other government employees. Signed, Sons of the Gestapo, SOG. End quote.
So they're trying to make a statement. If this is not a distraction.
Lots to unpack with this.
There's a lot. I mean, it seems like it's maybe a revenge plot. Maybe there's some injustice that they're trying to bring to light.
I will say, again, these are there's at least one topic very specifically referenced here, and I'm going to get more into the details in the theories, but essentially they're referring specifically to the 1993 Waco siege, in which, again, I won't be able to do that topic its proper justice because it would be a full episode on its own. Task Force, I deeply encourage you to go take a look at that if you want to know more about it. But again, I'll give you all the context you need for that as we discuss the first theory. But that's what they're talking about. When they talk about the kerosene lamps, tanks crushing through the walls, raising the gun to increase the damage, increasing the breathability of the fire so they burn so people die rather than being able to be saved, etc. All of these things are heightened emotional descriptors of events that happened during that siege. And so they're basically calling into question the government, the ATF being the government agency that stands for Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. They're also calling into question the FBI, but of course then they throw it out to all authority, whether it be police, sheriffs, state troopers, all of that. And so that's kind of, that seems to be their MO, or at least their motive here. That being said, my initial reaction is a little bit of confusion. I understand the heated emotion here, but why a train of innocent passengers?
Right.
Was there somebody on this train? And Task Force, you might have to help us out here too, and Fredo, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, but when I start to unpack the idea, the name of this group or this individual, it says Sons of the Gestapo. Now, obviously the Gestapo is the secret state police of Nazi Germany, and if they're so anti-government or anti-authority, Gestapo would be kind of an insult to be thrown at authority. It's weird that they're saying that they're the sons of the Gestapo, but also this isn't Nazi Germany. I start to get lost in the weeds of the name there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, just like the meaning and how it connects, and
unless they're saying like the government is essentially the Gestapo, they account for nobody. This isn't Nazi Germany, so they should account to something. And we're the sons, i.e. the byproduct of this government or this police force. That's the only meaning I can kind of shove into that, but I don't know. Again, lots to unpack there. A lot to read, you climb out of a train that just derailed and you're like,
so what was this, on a damn scroll?
Right, honestly. Right,
now that I think about it, because I'm like, right, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, wait a minute, this is going. Oh, this is still going. Oh, they're telling a whole story. Like, what's this typed out? Like, what the hell? It was a whole entire short story.
Right. It was like a CVS receipt of like, you buy one pack of gum, you get 3 feet of paper. Yeah, a lot to unpack there. And again, I'm not trying to like platform somebody's voice. Obviously whoever this is very problematic, and the decision they made to derail a train of innocent people is horrendous. But I read it mainly because a few things. One, there were 3 other notes of this kind, identical, found at the scene. So there's 4 of these found, but no scans, no images of these notes were ever released publicly. And so it's not like I guess you could go off and find this typed up on the internet, obviously, but for the sake of like bringing it all into one confined conversation. But yeah, I think this is the only real insight we gain into this person. And it's the only like real start we have on an investigation. So of course, the train derails, it's dramatic, but then they see this anti-FBI, anti-ATF, like very inflammatory letter. And because of this, and because of everything that's going on in the world or in the United States at this moment, the FBI launches a full investigation into this incident, but not in some sort of minor way. I mean, I'll talk more about this, but they pull 90 agents off the Oklahoma City bombing case. And so there are like, ties into the Oklahoma City bombing. And again, this is a whole other case, but there are some flimsy ties to a radical group within that topic that start to show up here. So anyway, I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but so they pull 90 agents, I think is the main thing to say here, to look into this. And they found that the derailment of the train must have been caused by someone who had an in-depth knowledge of the railway system. So first, before we dive into that, I want to show you images C. I've got 2 more images for you here, and this is just shots posted by NPR of agents on the scene. It gives you a little bit better idea of the scale too, because you see them measuring things out, checking on things.
Yeah, they have to do a whole full report. I'm surprised only one person passed. It could have been
Right.
so much more tragic.
Yeah. It's a bitter comfort, I think.
Yeah. Some of the people at the scene, there's the measuring of the tapes. It looks like they're just, taking notes and documenting what they can.
Yeah. Like, how did this happen? What's going on? Yeah. Getting the lay of the land. Now, this is when they found out, looking at the tracks, that on the bridge, 29 rail spikes had been removed, and the left rail had been shifted nearly 4 inches inward, which would have been easily enough for a train that has a rigid wheelbase to derail. Right? You're just basically dropping the left rail out from under it, and because of that, the train then tips off to the left and down into the ravine it goes. Obviously, rail spikes are used to just kind of hold those rails in place.
Yeah, but 4 inches, and it's just like, it just derails it. It's smaller than I expected it to be.
It's all they needed.
Yeah, it's very rigid. It's very just like, there's no fluidity to those at all. So
I will say, this is just me geeking out a little bit on what I do know about trains, is I believe their wheels are cambered inward. They're slanted. I always thought that was just like, like rubber hits the road, you have a flat tire that hits flat street.
Right. I thought the same too. I didn't know they were canted.
Yeah, it's so that way when they take the turns, the train kind of self-centers itself. So it kind of swings a little bit because it's sat on 2 inwardly slanted or maybe outwardly slanted metal wheels. You know what I mean? And so it's not like a normal wheel. It's like if your tires were like angled or what have you. So bigger on the inside, smaller on the outside. So it kind of self-centers. Interesting. Trains are fascinating. Just old engineering is fantastic.
I did not know that.
So whoever this was, though, I mean, they had the hardware, the equipment to rip up 29 railway spikes and then somehow move the rail, like kind of wedge it or pull it about, just shy of 4 inches inward. Which is, I mean, either a team did this or someone who was well equipped, right? Now, what's further interesting and really helped investigators at this time, though it is still a cold case, another train had come through this exact stretch of tracks just 18 hours prior. And so we know whoever did this couldn't have been too far away. They could have been maybe an 18-hour drive somewhere else, but basically, whoever did this either was specifically targeting this train or just so happened to sabotage the tracks somewhere in this window. So we know that they were in the area at least earlier that day. On top of that, whoever did this was incredibly clever because they knew how to damage the tracks without sending any warning signals back to the train's crew. So this is where the idea of the track circuit comes in, because when they wedged that rail out of alignment, this would have broken the track circuit. So the track circuit is a simple way to determine if a train is on the tracks ahead. But by breaking the electrical circuit, any approaching trains would have also had a red warning signal implying either the presence of a train ahead or that there was a rail issue. So what they did was they actually jumped. They used a household orange electrical wire to bypass the train's track circuit. So that way, by breaking the circuit, bending the rail, it wouldn't show the train that's coming, hey, something's wrong ahead, slow down or come to a stop. Instead, they bypassed it, which completed the circuit again. And so that way the train that's coming sees a green light, okay, all is clear ahead.
So yeah, so someone that was just knowledgeable.
Yeah. So they knew.
Because that's not easy to do. I would have no idea. I would have, they would have stopped that train instantly.
Right. I would have no idea. So basically, they charge up the electrical rail in certain segments, and then they complete a circuit. And when that circuit is like uninterrupted, unimpeded by a train or what have you, there is a device that can measure that circuit. But when a train comes on, the rail, the wheels short circuit it, which prevent the signal from going all the way to that detection box, and then it turns red. So yeah, they bypass that, which is wild.
How many inches does it take to derail a train? Is it 4? Just curious.
I would say just enough to be the width of a railway, like a train wheel. Let me see.
So that'd be just from, random knowledge of like, that would be crazy if they knew that too. They were that precise with and intimate with the system, how it works.
Ooh, yeah, like the minimum viable.
Yeah, they're like, all I need is 4 inches. They knew like the 4 was it, or they were just like, I'm just gonna move it.
Okay, so this is just a very quick Googling. I think different trains and different rails probably have different details, but it seems like a track only needs to be about 1 to 1.5 inches wider to trigger the risk of a derailment. And so I'm wondering, is it 1 or 2 inches on both sides? So it'd be like 2 to 3 inches. Basically enough for that wheel to not be able to stay on the track, right? And so I think it comes down to the width of a train tire or a train wheel, and that's all you need. And so by going nearly 4 inches, it was like way past the idea of risk and confirmed, like this is just enough to for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying 1 to 2 is like the risk of, he's like, just double it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just double it.
Just double it, and we should be in the green. Which is wild.
So the FBI investigators attempted to look into whatever this Sons of Gestapo was. They came up completely empty. There had been no previous activity claimed by any group with that name, and there's no evidence of a group with this name existing at all. Of course, there always has to be a first thing, so maybe this was the first and maybe only time that this group or individual had this name, but there's also the idea that maybe somebody just threw this name out there to be inflammatory, incendiary, and they themselves are just some sort of anarchist. Who knows? So, of course, this would be the first and only time the FBI or anybody would hear of the SOG. No evidence of the group was ever discovered, and they've never been heard from again, which is kind of all we have for the incident and some of the investigation. You know, the theories is where we'll start to unpack a lot more information, but I'm really curious of your thoughts here.
I mean, I see why this case is unsolved. They messed with the train tracks, left a letter, a statement, whatever their intention was, and then just didn't pop up ever again. There was no other train incident a week later. There was no other letter sent in, etc. They dipped into the shadows, never to be seen again. It's like, what do you do? How do you find that, right? There's no pattern for the FBI to try and figure out. Like, yeah, just gone.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, what is, you know what I mean? Like, what is the reasoning for that? Like,
that's the thing, man.
I don't think we'll ever find out, but what causes someone? Is it a bad day? Like,
I mean, you want to talk Joker? That's what it is.
Right.
All it takes is one bad day to really spiral someone off. And that truly is a terrifying thought. But yeah, dude, I don't know. And I think that's the most haunting element of this case is like, there's almost, and this is such like, again, cold comfort. There's almost comfort in the idea of knowing that, okay, well, at least they were after something, right? With this letter. But if this letter is just a red herring, that's where it really gets sinister. That's where it really starts to feel, as I haven't said in a long time, nefarious. Because there's no motive, there's no reason. It's just random chaos, and they never did it again. Like, how do you can't predict that? You can't defend against that. You know what I mean? Like,
really, yeah.
That's insane. One thing I didn't mention, there's a lot of like little breadcrumbs, you know, I kind of moved over. One of the things before we dive into the theories that stood out to me is that they couldn't find footprints or like tire tracks nearby. And so there are some fringe theories that are like somebody halo jumped in and then, you know, like got ripped back out from the sky, like, or helicoptered in or something.
That's a little wild.
It does get wild, but they're like, who was this person or this group that treaded on through the sands of the desert, popped up a 29, like, deeply mounted railway spikes, bent this rail in, and then left, because it takes some heavy equipment. How are you getting that out there?
I was about to say, how heavy is the equipment?
I don't know, honestly. Like, could you do it with just like a really strong arm and like some sort of lever device, like a heck of a crowbar?
A specific crowbar or something like that? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I really don't know, but I know that one of the theories relies on the idea of heavy equipment, and this is coming from the FBI. So using that idea, how did whoever this was get there, do this, disappear, no witnesses, inside knowledge, and left like no trail?
Yeah, see, that part's tricky too. There's no trail because if you look at the images, it's like desert. It's like dirt and sand. And so you think the equipment would be sizable, so they have to drive it in.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it was just him and one little tool that he carried on and used with one hand, it's like, okay, where are the footprints?
Right.
I don't know. Was he just super cautious and then just, I don't know, just covering up his tracks, walking backwards or something like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what happened there that.
Yeah. Was this like Timothy Chalamet doing that sand walk
Yeah.
to prevent the dune lizards or the dune worms coming up?
Some kind of intricate walk or half step that was going on? Was he walking and then like stepping on his hands while he was walking? Like, I don't.
Oh, I see.
They used to do that. I think ninjas did that in order to silence their footsteps.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They'd walk on their hands.
They'd walk on their hand like four-legged or like handstand.
No, just like two. They'd have like their hands like on the ground and they'd put it like a step forward and they put their foot on that hand to like silence their steps.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
On like floorboards and stuff like that as they were moving.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, dude, a ninja shows up, derails a train and disappears?
Even bigger mystery. But it's just like, what, like, how do you not have, I don't know, is the weather windy enough to blow away the tracks? Like,
yeah, maybe?
Is that a thing? Was it raining or like, I don't know, did the weather help? Did he time it with the weather?
Right.
So many unanswered questions.
Could a child have done this? Someone under 50 pounds.
I'm going to say no on that one.
Okay. One more theory before we get back into serious.
Came in on a Tonka truck.
Yeah, he drove his little Tonka engine out there, and they thought, couldn't be a kid's toy that did this. This must be something else. All right, one more wild theory before we get serious. What if, like a standard broom with the bristles down at the end, throw away the stick. You just have two broom bristles now. Tape those to the back of your calves. So now they're dragging at your heels. You're brushing up your steps as you go. Do you think that could work?
I mean, honestly, there might be something you can Google now that it's just like you can buy to cover your tracks or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, in a more serious way, like what if, would they know if somebody drove out there and dragged chains behind them to like disturb the dirt and hide their, or would that leave its own trail? You know what I mean?
Probably what? Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? We're not trackers, so I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm not Aragorn. I can't get down there, taste the dirt, and know where they went,
Yeah, feel the rumble.
Yeah. Oh, there's a four-wheeler 5 miles from here going south. And what's wild is I didn't even think about this, but truly, the border is not too far south of there. It's possible that whoever did this popped the train rail, knowing the schedule of the tracks, and then was maybe across the border before dinner time even.
Yeah.
There's that 18-hour window between the train that went by and this one.
And this one? That's a huge window, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back to the conversation at hand and some of the more serious theories, because of course, after this accident, there were several theories that were swirling around about who the sons of Gestapo might be. And given the contents of the letter and the criticisms of the FBI, the ATF, and how they handled the situation in Waco, some feared that this was the work of an anti-government group performing an act of domestic terrorism. In particular, the letter seemed to focus heavily on the burning of Mount Carmel Center. This was the fiery and fatal end of the 1993 Waco siege. And again, not doing it justice, but just to catch you all up with like a cliff notes here, the Waco siege was a deadly 51-day standoff between federal law enforcement and an armed religious sect called the Branch Davidians that culminated in a catastrophic fire, and I believe upwards of 80 to 90 people died. It's a lot. But that's what really was leading the theories at the time, especially because the derailment occurred 6 months after the Oklahoma City bombing, and this gives more context as to why the FBI and the public were panicking so much about domestic militia attacks. Again, not doing that whole topic justice either, but within the confines of that subject, There's the idea of the Aryan Republican Army and its potential ties to the Oklahoma City bombing, etc. Basically just table setting here. Maybe someday we'll dive into that one. But again, 90 agents pulled from the Oklahoma City bombing case to focus on the Sunset Limited sabotage. Now, at the time, Arizona was home to several active militia, making this theory a little bit more plausible. Additionally, derailment was not something unusual for militia. For example, in 1994, the militia of Montana put a catalog that advertised a book called The Road Back. And in this book, they detailed a derailment plan. So it's kind of like it was in the minds of some of the militias in the US, but this particular plan involved explosives rather than kind of deconstructing the railway in particular. So while several specific groups were investigated, such as the FTRA, the Freight Train Riders of America, and the Violent and Problematic Aryan Republican Army, the ARA, doubts began to arise. They're looking closer into this theory, and suffice to say that nothing is really tying together neatly.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, we're mentioning, was it a diversion?
It's possible. It's very possible. So kind of like the thinking at the time, the FBI is like, well, first off, you know, none of these militia groups were found with relation to the phrase or the name Sons of Gestapo. There's no ties to that anywhere. There's no iconography. There's no secret memos tumbling around in the back rooms of these militias that kind of point to this name. Additionally, no surrounding militias had heard of this name. And my gut instinct is, well, people can lie. But
right.
Yeah, but no one, it seems like this name is almost a ghost on the page. Again, also I'm kind of confused because Gestapo is usually a term for extremist use for the government. So Sons of Gestapo makes kind of little sense as an anti-government group. But again, maybe I'm missing their metaphor here. Ultimately, like I said, doubts arose that an ordinary militiaman or other group activists would have the knowledge to pull off a detailed derailment of this kind. You know, when we're outlaying it here, Fredo, it sounds pretty simple, but like you said, I wouldn't have had the knowledge to do all this. It sounds simple when you describe it to me, but to do it, to have the knowledge, that's where it kind of points to the idea, you know, of an inside job. And that's what the FBI is thinking at this point. They're moving away from this idea of a domestic group and more towards the idea of an inside man or an inside hit. Who is that and what's the motivation? So let's ask the question, was this an inside job? Some began to think that the derailment was something personal, either with Amtrak, with the Sunset Limited, or somebody on the train, for whatever reason. And to build on that motive, people began to look into a recently reported announcement from Amtrak stating that they would end direct service on the 90-mile branch line, which happened to include the stretch of Arizona desert that this train derailed. So people are starting to go, okay, well, if Amtrak is going to shut down this line, maybe this is a revenge plot. Somebody that's working on this section of line might have thought, well, I'm going to be out of a job, so I'm going to get back at them by derailing one of their trains. However, this is such a small closure that whoever was working on this section of line would likely move to a different area. It wouldn't be job threatening. It probably wouldn't be enough to derail a train in such a dramatic fashion. And also, Amtrak had postponed this change because of other pending shifts in the industry, so it wasn't even set in stone that this was going to happen. But with the idea of an inside job starting to peter out, people began turning their attention to other strange happenings. So this is where there's a few other odds and ends I didn't discuss earlier. There was a brush fire not too far away. It was kind of near a wooden railroad bridge, and so it was threatening that bridge too. And it was near the derailment site. It was in Hyder, Arizona. Meanwhile, a stick of dynamite was found in the men's restroom of an Exxon gas station that was also nearby the derailment. And so it's hard to know if these were associated with this derailment, if these were misdirects.
I mean, if they're saying they were a group, maybe they had all kinds of different solutions.
Ooh, this does tie back to the militia derailment plan with explosives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unless a guy, Huck Johnson's on the crew and he's like, we're the Sons of Gestapo, we're going to derail this train. And Jimmy's like, guy, we're just going to move the rail. That's it. Put your explosive away.
Right.
But then on the way home, Huck's like, I gotta go. They stop at the gas station and for whatever reason, he forgets his dynamite there,
People forget everything.
People forget everything. The brush fire could be natural,
Yeah.
but the fact that it was near a wooden railway bridge is interesting. And also, like, how often do you find a stick of dynamite in the bathroom?
Yeah, and it just pairs with railroad tracks. You know what I mean? It wasn't like C4 or anything like that. I'm just like, dynamite? A stick of dynamite?
Right. It's like, what is this, 1862?
Right. And so, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't something more advanced, like, again, like C4. And so, I mean, I don't think it's too far of a stretch to maybe think that there was multiple different ideas on how to derail the train.
Yeah.
But then they probably settled with the one that didn't tamper, again, with the sensors, you know?
Right. An explosive would have definitely been a lot more catastrophic, maybe resulted in the same thing, but kind of then makes me go, okay, well, yeah, did they want it to derail and look dramatic but not be deadly? Like, whereas an explosive would obviously be deadly. Like, it just raises so many questions. It's just so intriguing. And it makes me think, maybe they roped up a couple of Mavericks and that's how they got out there. Because I don't know, would the FBI go, there's horse tracks here? Because I don't know, are there wild horses in Arizona? You know what I mean? Like, my brain is just going wild now with all these like possible thoughts.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a few more now chaotic but intriguing clues. And so investigators are starting to go, okay, well, we don't think it's a group. It could be an inside guy because just the knowledge of bypassing the track circuit, etc. But now they're thinking, okay, well, maybe if we think about it, maybe it's a lone anarchist, right? And this is something that you've kind of talked about. Terrifying, just chaotic energy anarchist. They never gathered enough evidence to make an arrest, though there was one specific suspect that they targeted with this idea in mind. In December, 2 months later, 1995, the FBI raided the home of a man named John Ernest Olin. So Olin, this is interesting, was an executive for a railroad salvage company. He was wrapped up in various disputes with other major railway companies, none of them being Amtrak, but I think one of them had relations to Amtrak, kind of like as a partner.
Yeah.
Investigators believe that he would have had the tools, the knowledge, and the motive to pull off this derailment, though he was ultimately released due to the lack of evidence. So innocent or not, he does remain the case's most prominent named suspect.
Interesting.
A salvage company. So it does seem like he would have the knowledge.
Right, to take things apart because that's, you know. Okay.
Maybe this is that Zodiac moment where we're like, we got the guy, but then just we couldn't pin him because the evidence was just dwindled, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a regular dude. I don't know. But now comes something where, kind of following that line of like someone doing this randomly, here comes an equally terrifying idea. Okay, so 1 week prior to the derailment, there was a railroad-focused magazine called the SP Train Line. In that magazine, they published an article about the 1939 train crash. So in this crash, there was a train named the City of San Francisco, and it derailed in a remote Nevada desert, killing 24 and injuring 121 passengers and crew. Now, the crashes are eerily similar. Okay, so this happened 50 years prior. Both trains were derailed as they crossed over a bridge, over a river, in a remote area, creating the most dangerous accident far from help. The 1939 crash was also an obvious act of sabotage because 24 rail spikes had been removed and the tracks were deliberately shifted to cause the derailment. The saboteur also used a wire to bypass the track circuit warning system, just like in this case. Now, unlike our current case, this one, they then painted the tracks brown and put tumbleweed over them to kind of camouflage it. So even when they had imminent threat that they were approaching it, even though it was like 9:30 p.m. at night for this accident, the conductor would still probably not be able to see the track was manipulated, and they would hit that spot on the rails and, you know, the derailment happened. Now, despite the 24 deaths and many injured, no one was ever found guilty or arrested for this terrible accident. And so comes the theory. Was this just a random copycat that happened to read this magazine about this 1939 train crash and decide for whatever reason that they wanted to do the same thing.
I mean, there are copycats. We talk about that, you know? People inspire people all the time, even in the worst ways. So I guess it could have been?
I mean, it's so eerily similar.
It's very similar. I don't think it's the same person. 50 years apart is massive. I don't think they were doing this in their 80s.
Right. We don't have an octogenarian sabotaging the rail.
And so I think I would cross that out. But yeah, it could be inspired.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that is super common. So when you do it, not everyone's going to be like, oh my God, it's just like this case 50 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right. Truly, yeah.
Because sometimes there is a bit of narcissism when it comes to these things. But not so much with this one, though, because they kind of just vanished. They didn't put another letter. They weren't consistently sending things to the FBI, stuff like that. So
very limited taunting. Never came back around.
I don't know, I mean,
yeah, this was so weird, man.
It's really weird. It was a very targeted thing and then never done again. It could be as much as like they did it in a fit of rage and then now they have regrets, and then never did it again. And so I don't know.
I do appreciate the investigation though, because somehow they found out about this article. I don't know if this is, aggravating or what have you, because this magazine, I thought when we were looking into this, that this was like, it's like New York Times or the Post or, just a magazine that people, those are newspapers, but a magazine that people have. And it turns out there's only 2,000 subscribers to this magazine. And so immediately that's an investigatable pool of people, especially when authorities narrow it down. They look at the subscribers that are in Arizona specifically, who would have had the locale. There's only 30 people in Arizona that have a subscription to this magazine and are in Arizona. And so this would seemingly give us a great way to dial in on a potential copycat anarchist, but authorities did investigate each and every one of these people. They interviewed all 30 subscribers, but there was not any substantial evidence. There was no further leads. Ultimately, all trails went cold. I mean, they even investigated the author of the article, John Siner, and he had an alibi. It feels like that's like we got so close. That was such a clever, so whoever did this, it felt so clean, but then just this moment felt like we got so close, but it didn't hit. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what it is, though. You grasp at straws, and sometimes some are longer than others, and that's not the right one. Man,
I love it when something so peculiar like this can nail down somebody who otherwise they were a ghost,
That's true, because it's just so specific.
Yeah. So I was really hopeful that this would turn into something, that this would get somebody. But, man. And I mean, I think the FBI felt the same way, because as this case unfolded, when it first happened, their public announcements are like, hey, we're confident we're going to be able to figure this out in a month. Maybe a few weeks even. Don't worry, we're on top of this. We're going to get this done. We're going to find the saboteurs. But of course, as time goes on, there's no leads are showing up, no new clues.
What are you gonna do?
The case is cold, and it remains unsolved to this day. And it's such a prominent one in the FBI's history that on the 20th anniversary of the crash in 2015, they actually offered up a $310,000 reward for anyone 20 years later who could provide information that would lead to an arrest.
Wow.
And that reward is still outstanding. If you know anybody out there, task force, go get that bag.
Damn.
So today, what's interesting is there is a new iteration of the Sunset Limited. It continues to run between New Orleans and Los Angeles. The old stretch of track, though, where this derailment occurred, now sits largely abandoned. It's used mostly as storage tracks, and I believe the current Sunset Limited travels maybe a few miles just south of it. But you can see this bridge on Google Maps. I mean, it's just a trail in the desert, and there's something eerie about looking at it now that you know. But I think this kind of comes back to one of the thoughts you had, or the questions you had, which is why this spot and why not another spot? Because this track goes over that empty riverbed several times. It's almost like they kind of undulate next to each other for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know, man. This is a very interesting case. And if I had to give my gut instincts, I almost feel like it was just a random act of violence We'll never figure out who it was or
Yeah.
why they did it or how they did it, maybe like cover their tracks. But then the letter was kind of like their smoke bomb. They pointed to a lot of things happening in the US in 1993 and in 1995, and they said, I'm part of that massive wave of anarchy and like militia groups and domestic terrorism. So pull me up with that. And then they'll kind of never be found because it's such a misdirect. And it's such a valid misdirect because all that stuff's happening or happened. Like,
Right. And then also this person just like went back to their normal life.
Yeah, right.
You know, and that normal life could have been a neighbor, is a family member, you know, maybe even a parent, son, daughter, and just went back to just like, yep.
That's wild.
And how many years ago was this? Like,
this was 95.
90s? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing's come up since. Sometimes, you know, we have stuff that comes up later on where someone's like, hey, I did this, or even some people claiming to say that they did it. It was really just a one and done with a long note. This is so wild. It's
wild.
I mean, it's a big tragic event, but it's so weird on how subtle it was overall. And the fact of like, they knew what they were doing. They moved the train track a bit. They left a long note, never to be seen again. That's it. Gone.
Man, I
don't even know. The mind. This is one of those ones where I'm just like, what were they thinking? What was the mindset there? You know, was it emotionally charged? Like, and then now they're full of regret. Like, no clue.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, we didn't really fully talk about it. I mentioned it briefly, but like, what if it is just a disgruntled ex and they're like, my partner's on that train and I don't know, you know? And they just like, it could be anything. And again, that's if you don't take the letter at face value. Obviously, there's some motive slathered all over that thing. Yeah, man, it's a wild one. It's haunting for sure. Yeah, I think for me, the thing that stands out so much is just how it's almost like they copied the 1939 City of San Francisco train derailment to a T. But it would be wild if it was the same person. You know, they come back around at the end of their life, like, you know, I'm also thinking like to pull up 29 spikes, you gotta be patiently wanting this. There's no room for regret. I won't give them any courtesy of like, maybe they regretted it and just disappeared again. No, dude, you wanted that.
That's true. 29 spikes is a lot.
You're going to town on that, you know, on that rail.
It wasn't like in the moment, right? Like a flash moment decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like the discharge of a firearm or anything like that. This was you are physically working.
Yeah, you're working on the railroad all the live long day.
Yeah, and you're consistently reminding yourself like, yeah, I'm doing this.
Yeah, dude, I think that's what makes this so haunting. The almost randomness of it, the lack of motive, even if you do take the letter at face value, the fact that they just like disappeared out there, and the fact that they clearly really wanted it.
Yeah.
Whether it was a person or a group. Man,
I don't know. And then they're just gone. That's it. Nothing else. Like, did you get what you wanted? Was this a revenge thing and you got your revenge? Like,
right. I don't know. Normally I would just move on and end the episode. I'm just circling the wagon here because I'm so it's such an interesting case.
like a ghost.
Like a ghost. Task Force, I'm so curious. If you want, on our Discord channel, available at redwebpod.com, we, every single episode, post a thread where we love to see and read your theories, because sometimes you guys put some clues together that we don't even think about when we're pulling the investigation together, or maybe that wasn't even investigated at the time. So if you have some thoughts, even if it's just a comment on this episode, you can comment kind of wherever you listen to this. Let us know. I'm really curious. I'm going to be reading some of those to see if, I don't know, man, because I don't like most of the cases we do are unsolved. I mean, it's part of the whole format here, but I don't like the randomness of it. You know, that I think it just sits so awkwardly with me.
It does. It's just a weird feeling of a case.
Any old train you hop on could just go boop, and off it goes. Nah, dude.
Oh, man. Yeah, then there's that at its core.
Nah.
This is like before the, I guess like a larger boom of the internet and all the information being readily available at your hands.
Yep. So this person knew some stuff and they wanted this done for whatever reason. All right, Task Force, thank you all so much for joining us. I want to give some shout outs. Our newest Task Force member joining us is the Nerdy Lab Girl. Welcome.
You'll fit right in.
You're going to fit right in. We got all sorts
Behind
of scientists.
the desk. No lab for
buff
you.
No. Oh, we don't have a single lab. We got a clean room, but we don't go in there. That's why it stays clean. In fact, actually, if you look into it, it's just more desks.
Just more desks. Yeah.
Just more desks. Welcome. Well, we'll get you your badge, and everyone's got their own code, access code. So we'll be sending that to you by way of fax machine. Our buff scientist of the week, Tyler Diamond. Thank you so much. And then, of course, our illustrious squonks. We got Low K, Neo Trickster, Dakota, just to name a few. You guys are wonderful. Thank you all so much. And yeah, come get that merch. The month is ending. It's coming. Here it is. Here's one of them anyway. This is
rock some cool merch. Support our little, independent business here.
Yeah. Oh, I also, you know what? We record these ahead, Task Force. Mm-hmm. This is something I should have mentioned. By now, you'll all be aware that we have our mystery tour shirt available now as well. It is a secret, and it's available only for our Patreon members. That's right. It's our first exclusive Patreon shirt, and it will stay up for forever, so you can get that whenever your heart desires. But yeah, anyway, Fredo, with that said, see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.